Okay, good afternoon, everybody. This is episode number 57. Byron Hunt, right? Would you say that,
Oh, you
Jerry?
just made my day with that.
Byron Hunt. What's another
My
57?
day.
What's another 57? Of the Sports Consigliere podcast. I'm happy to be joined back with my consigliere, Jerry Calla. Jerry, I know you had some graduations, you had some birthdays. I missed you on the last episode, but I know you're watching and critiquing me and everything else. But Jerry, welcome back to the show, episode number 57. What do you got for us, Jerry?
Listen, I am so excited that we're back on. It feels like ages. We had some personal stuff going on in our lives, and we got detoured. And ultimately, you had a great guest last episode. You had a priest with a plethora of baseball knowledge. I got a little nervous as a Catholic. I thought he was going to hold me to confession.
Yeah.
I had a,
Well,
I had a, I had to back out of that episode. But
yeah. I
again,
thought.
bang up job by you and him.
Yeah, well, it was good. It was good. I mean, the cybermetrics and everything else, and also he had an event at the Yogi Berra Museum, so I just found him online, and he was very receptive, and then also, um, definitely a Hudson County guy, an Italian guy, so checks a lot of boxes for you. So, uh,
Absolutely,
so
absolutely.
let's just dive right into it. I think we're at
And by the way,
27.
before we get into the show, there's no truth that I interviewed for the Knicks head coaching job.
No, I didn't
Although
see it.
I think my travel basketball record, the way they're going, I could be a dark horse candidate.
Yeah, well, everybody's denying it, so that you're a candidate, but that makes it seem like it's real. But it's 27 days since they got rid of Tibbs, and really they have free agency on the horizon and NBA draft pass, which I thought was like compared to the NFL draft. I think we talked about this getting ready for the show. The NFL draft and NBA draft. I mean, NBA draft put me to sleep. I don't know what your thoughts were on the NBA draft. I know it really wasn't uh, too climatic like it was in years ago. I mean, Cooper Flag, everybody knew was going to go number one, and then and the two kids from Rutgers, Bailey and Harper, were going to go top five, and a couple of these Duke players sprinkle in. Edgecombe went too. But what was your take on the draft? And we talked about the Knicks and the Nets
Well, I
after
mean,
the
I
event.
think I think, like you said, you just kind of wrapped up. If you missed the draft, you just kind of wrapped everything up that you needed to know in like 45 seconds. I mean, we talk about this all the time. There's nothing that compares to the NFL. The NFL draft is an event, as we've talked about. I mean, and you get to the NBA draft, is it because guys are leaving early? It loses the mystique. But like you said, I mean, locally you had the two Rutgers guys that had the interest, and then obviously everybody knew Flay he was going one, but it's not the same. I mean, the buildup is not there. You get a lot of European guys, in the draft, which is fine. The Nets with 5 picks took 4 guards out of their 5 picks that they
Yeah, and you
accumulated
were
in the
saying they
first
were getting
round,
crucified. They were getting
and they are
crucified. Yeah,
getting crucified with a capital C. And the Knicks made a move. They drafted a player that really for defense, his offensive game, he did improve from one season to the next with his 3-point shooting, but they drafted a player that it has a 7'1" wingspan and is going to have to defend to make the roster. I don't think it's a guarantee, and I'm under the impression, and that he won't even be on the roster next year. He will be in summer league, in the Vegas summer league, but they might stash him in Europe.
yeah. They
So
might stay. Yeah,
locally, it was really no big fanfare for the Knicks. They drafted a guy with potential upside on the defensive side of the ball, and then the Nets. I think there was a little more excitement because anytime, even if it's a weak draft, you have 5 picks in the first round. But I think what people and what Sean Marks is under criticism for with the 5 picks in the first round, people felt he would have been better trying to put a package together with multiple picks to kind of move up. He stayed the course. He took 4 guards. There was a few people that was considered the stretch, and man, the Nets got one of the. You turn on any sports news site, internet, TV, whatever, they're getting ripped apart, boy, big time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, that, like I said, it was a snooze fest, and I think that the moral to the story, I think, for the draft is one: if you're good and you're getting paid in college, and you're a tweener, probably just a lot of these players are going to stay in college. And then said there's definitely a more of a European influence. I think that anytime the Knicks take a French player, I'm always thinking about Frederick Weiss. That that they picked this guy with back problems and who never panned out. So but the European League is definitely up and coming. The European players are definitely influencing the league. Look at some of the top players, Jokic. Um, their MVP candidates, everything else. So
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
definitely. But it's day 27. We still don't have a coach. Knicks are going into free agency. A couple names
Real
are
quick, by the way, I have erased Frederick Weiss's name from my memory.
okay.
If we're going
All
to
right.
talk about drafting a French player, I actually thought that he was going to be pretty decent, and it didn't turn out that way. And he's actually still playing. Is Frank Ntilikina?
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
came in. He had a little bit. It was a spurt here, a flash of promise, but in the end, he didn't work out. He's still playing. Overseas. But again, like you talked about, the focal point with the Knicks, they don't have much cap space. They're going to add pieces in free agency. The big conversation with the Knicks, like you said, day 27. No Tom Thibodeau. Tom Thibodeau is since he's been fired, and we're talking to everybody under the sun. Yesterday, the news stories broke that they were actually reaching out to Dawn Staley.
Yeah. I heard that. Yep.
And
And
and again, I think she would be crazy to leave what she has, because I think she has what everybody in women's college basketball is trying to get to, which is she has a program where they have some NIL stuff going on there, but more importantly, she's getting players that are coming there, making a few bucks, and then going to the WNBA, and they're more than prepared to go and play in the WNBA. So,
yeah.
I think, and I'm a big, anybody that knows me, I don't know if I ever got into this with you or on the program here, but I am actually a big Dawn Staley guy. I like her story, Philadelphia upbringing, really, really made a big mark with the, women's national team. I think she's
Yeah.
an excellent coach, excellent recruiter, but again, I think what we're seeing is, and it's hard to deny this, is that this is Jim Dolan putting his stamp on this. I think Jim Dolan wanted Thibodeau gone, and I know there was stories him and Rose, had the friction, but again, that friction started before Leon Rose gave Thibodeau the extension. So this is a Jim Dolan move, and how
Yeah.
I think it confirms that this is Jim Dolan with his fingerprints all over this is that once Thibodeau was fired within days, no disrespect to Craig Carton, he had Craig Carton on the air hitting multiple programs. Craig and Jim Dolan have a close relationship. And Craig was like, no, this is no way Jim Dolan was involved in this. That tells you everything right there that it was a Jim Dolan move. He has his, he has his, I don't want to say blind followers in the media, but he has his media connections and he's using them because, again, it makes no sense to fire a guy like Thibodeau. Yes, did he win an NBA championship in the other two stops? No, he was very successful. They fire him, and now it's like, kid, did they really think they could get Kid? Maybe. Kid's not getting out of that contract. And again, Dallas is gonna ask for the world, right? Now everybody, they asked for 4 different guys. They asked permission who wanted the contract. All that did was infuriate, right, 4 teams in the NBA because as we talked about, you have that unofficial code, unofficial rules of the game. GMs don't want to be worrying about losing their coach who's under contract. So, for example, the Knicks calling the Rockets for Udoka, permission to speak to Ime Udoka, all that did was further the process of the Rockets now giving him an extension and probably giving him more money than they wanted to. Then we went into the Mike Brown, Jenkins, who got fired from Memphis, where now we got Dawn Staley. I mean, You know,
Yeah, it's
it's
still got James.
unbelievable. Who's
You got
next?
James Borrego coming up. You also have
Right. And there's a
Nori.
few
Nor,
guys, there's a few assistants, but I just think that you don't get rid of a guy like that, okay, unless you have a concrete, plan. And I think at the time when he got fired, Malone, I think because of his pedigree, was the fan favorite or the social media favorite. And again, they're not going to touch Malone because apparently, he's had some contentious relationships with the front office. But where this search goes here, I have no idea, and I really don't want to hear, okay, because I think an organization like the Knicks, they don't have to be. This team is ready to go, and whoever comes in is going to have the enormous, probably the most enormous amount of pressure in New York sports next year. Okay, you're not going to hire somebody who doesn't have, or you shouldn't hire somebody who is inexperienced or this is their first head job. So I'll be honest, I am baffled, other than to say this is a Jim Dolan move, and now we get the product of Jim Dolan making this move, is that we don't know where this is going to go. And I don't want to hear, the classic GM talk, due diligence, we're interviewing this, because that shouldn't happen with a team like this. If you're rebuilding and you're going to have, a very young team and you're going to win 18 games, you're going to look for a player development guy. Okay. This team they need to hit not a home run, a grand slam with who replaces Thibodeau. Okay. And I know early on, Van Gundy's name was thrown out there. He's with the Clippers. He's the associate head coach at the Clippers. I like that choice. Again, is Dolan ever going to let Van Gundy back in the building, to be employed? Probably not. But again, what are we doing and where are we going?
yeah, well, I mean, you hit a lot of points there, Jerry. First off, with Dawn Staley, I mean, she definitely had a storied career. And where I went to college, it was a small school in Pennsylvania. A lot of Philly kids went there, and she was probably the best guard, male or female, in Philly. They said that she could probably take on any boy guard in Philly, and she was that good. She went to the University of West Virginia
Yeah.
after that, and then she had a choice. I don't know. I mean, does she take an opportunity? But like you said, she's entrenched now, like Pat Summitt was back in Tennessee, or Gino Auriemma up in Connecticut. I mean, she's going to have a lot of equity to play with up there. Are you surprised that Leon Rose hasn't really addressed the media, and there's been a lot of circulation going on? And also, I was surprised. I just figured the way things kind of fell out, that they would either pick off an OKC assistant or a another assistant in the whoever's in the championship game, that they were holding back on that and they're waiting to get interviewed because they were in in the NBA championship. So either OKC or
Or the Pacers.
Indiana. So I mean, and also with the East, they're all eyeballs going to be on that job, because if you look, Halliburton's injured. Boston is trading away a lot of their players. So the Cavaliers, they were number one seed, they didn't make it. So the East is kind of ripe to be plucked, and everything's kind of falling away for the Knicks. So I agree with you that it's all Jim Dolan, but I don't know. It's a weird situation for Knicks fans, but I don't know. And then I heard today that even there's talk even LeBron James has signed him going to the Knicks. So, but I think that he might go to Cleveland more so than anything else. But a better shot going to Cleveland. But I don't know. But there's a lot there in the Knicks, and I don't know. It's Dolan all over again. So.
Absolutely. Am I surprised that Leon Rose, and I think Leon Rose has done a great job.
Absolutely, yeah.
There was some skepticism, when he got the job, but with all that being said, the bottom line is, where are they going to turn to in this? And again, like you said, to give this team to a hot assistant with no head coaching experience, I think you're putting the guy or gal for that matter, right, you're way behind the eight ball. Like you said, the Knicks add a few pieces. What's going on with the injuries in the East, right? They're, like you said, it's there. The timing is there. I don't believe that this is a situation, and I know what the naysayers, to my point, are going to say. They're going to say when Riley jettisoned, right? They wanted the name. They got Don Nelson, and Don Nelson and Ewing didn't hit it off. Starks, and then that led to Van Gundy, right? Van Gundy, okay, was on the staff. And I think that was the difference in that situation. Yes, he wasn't Jeff Van Gundy as we know him now, right? He was relatively an unknown, but he was on the staff. I think if they got rid of Thibodeau and they elevated somebody, I think that would be a quote unquote better sell to the league, to the media, to your fans, than to just go on this wild goose chase of candidates. And I think I came across something the other day, and they said there's a lot of people in the NBA that are really pissed off at Rose now, okay, because they do not want to be dealing with, as a GM, you got to, you're coming into free agency, and now you're worried about, if your coach is going to try to pull a maneuver to force his way out. And again, I still think that there's a part of Leon Rose and there's a part of people in Dallas that think that's going to be Kidd, because they're saying that the Knicks are his dream job. And again, if that is the case, right, and Kidd is going to probably play hardball, during, because they're going to try to get him for an extension. And if that's the case, maybe that's what they're holding out for. I don't know.
Well, listen, he was a coach with the Nets. He was a player with the Nets. He took them to the NBA finals
And
back
he
in the early
also had
2000.
Brunson.
Yeah.
Also had
So,
Butch Brunson, but
but
just
but
anytime you throw Jim Dolan into the mix, it gets very peculiar, because I think, let's say weeks from now, let's say if Kidd does, muscle his way out of Dallas and the Knicks pay the compensation and they hire him, all is forgotten. I just don't really think that that's going to happen. I just really don't think that that's the case.
yeah. Well, we'll see. But I mean, I'm hoping by the end of the week that they have their players. So I mean, a couple
And
of
if
players.
anybody's listening, I would interview for the job.
Okay. Well,
Just
you
to,
never know. If
you
you're not on
never
the
know.
next, yeah, if you're not on the next episode, everybody knows why.
Everybody knows
So
where I went.
but turning to the Yankees, not really a stellar June. They were kind of hot coming into June. I guess they finished 13-13. They got a game tonight. Aaron Judge, 30 home runs.
Yeah, two
Max Fried,
yesterday.
yeah, Max Fried, 10-2. Looks like he's on a Cy Young path. I mean, looks like Jazz Chisholm. He came up from Somerset. He looked like he had some growing pains. Looked like he found his offense, in a triple yesterday, a home run. So, what's your take on the stake of the Yankees right now, sitting on June 30th?
Well, it's a worrisome situation, and since Stanton, especially since Stanton came back, they're not hitting. Yesterday, thank God they faced Severino. I was a big Severino fan when he was here, but he's having a god awful year.
Yeah,
Judge hit two home runs. I think Severino wound up giving up 7 runs yesterday, but before that, I mean, it's just we've seen some bad baseball. We've seen some bad hitting. I believe their going into yesterday, their home run average as a team went from 1 from every 20 plus at bats to 1 every like 36 plus at bats. That's the Yankees under Boone, living for the long ball. But I mean, we've seen some bad stuff recently, base running, missing cutoff guys. And it's been a rough June. And if you would have told me at the beginning of the month that overall the pitching staff would hold it together, I mean, it's a crazy year that with their injuries that their pitching staff was able to hold it together. Getting Stroman back. I mean, Stroman had a brutal rehab stint. He got lit up, and ultimately he came back. He gave him 5 good innings, and they won. But I think they're going to be very aggressive at the trade deadline, and ultimately because of their bad June, they let a few teams back in the division. But again, it's the American. I hate to say this. I hate to sound like like a big Yankee pundit, but it is the American League, and I hate to sound like Aaron Boone. They will be in the playoffs. They should win the division. and it's the American League.
I think they have like a 99% chance on probability of making the playoffs. So, and then
Yes.
which is a good thing. But do you see them making any moves? I could see them getting a third baseman, getting another arm.
I think third base, and we don't need to go into the potential candidates. I think third base is going to be the spot. I think they would really and kudos to Jazz, right? Because he came over last year. He didn't say boo about moving to third. He started the year this year at second. They moved him over to third recently. He got hurt, came back, went to third. No complaints. Goes about his business. He's very charismatic. I think he's good for the club. But I think what they're seeing now, they want to put him back at second. They will get a third baseman. I still think a reliever's in play. And we'll see what the cost of a starting pitcher is going to be.
Yeah, I don't know. You think they move LeMahieu? I mean, I'm a big LeMahieu guy, but as his time passed here in New York,
Contract is tough.
yeah. Well, yeah. Well, listen, I think
Steinbrenner, this version of the Yankees under Steinbrenner is not one that pays people to go away. Steinbrenner has always been very reluctant to take on salary to get a guy to go away. So, LeMahieu still has some big bucks on his
yeah,
deal. You know, uh, again, it's like anything else, right? He got old. You see him. He's had the injury bug. The last few years, and
yeah,
ultimately, does he really give you any value on the bases? There's a lot of things going. And I think
yeah.
for them to
I
get better, they need to get better at third base. But it's just amazing how everybody kind of went cold. Wells is having a rough go. Goldschmidt's having a rough go. Judge was struggling for a while. Like I said earlier, he had the 2 home runs yesterday. And
I
Grissom
just
kind of
think,
came back to earth.
but I just think too it was like how many games that they played. I think they played like 15 out of 16 days. So I think that there's also was travel involved and everything else. They were
Yeah, I
playing
mean,
away, so I think it was a rough patch. I think that's probably a part of the schedule that they circled. But coming into July, they're still in first place. I'm not worried about Tampa taking them over, but like we'll see what happens. But I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I'm optimistic about the Yankees. I mean, if I was a Met fan, I wouldn't be too optimistic compared to how they're going. So, but they're still in first place too. So
yeah, I mean, again, they had a few injuries as well in the pitching staff. I mean, you know, I still think they're gonna finish strong. What bothers a lot of people about the Yankees, and it's almost weird that we're gonna delve into this now, is that like you hear things and you read things about how scouts say they're really fundamentally flawed, and it's just bizarre. It's bizarre to hear that about the Yankees, number
yeah,
one, but about a major league team. I mean, and we've seen bad base running, cut off situational stuff, and
yeah.
it's just bizarre. Players get to that level, and you know, is it on the manager? I mean, is it on the player? I mean,
I
it's
don't know. I
bizarre.
mean, yeah, but there has been some questionable plays, there and out, but the defense is holding well. I mean, Volpe is playing well at short defensively. Offensively, he's spotty, but I mean, he's playing well at short. You know,
And
I don't know
now
if
I
you,
think the last thing I'll say about the lineup is I thought Boone really was doing a very good job with moving people around, using the DH spot. And now, unfortunately, I really think his hands are tied. He's not a magician, but man, you know, I know Stanton had a great postseason last year, but man, does he clog up things?
yeah. Well,
He really does,
yeah, he's not hitting. So I
and
mean,
he's
so
not
we'll have
hitting.
to wait and see. But turn into another staying with baseball though. Dave Parker finally made the Hall
That's
of
the
Fame.
Cobra.
Yeah, the Cobra, he passed away. So, just thoughts about, We Are Family with Pittsburgh and Dave Parker. He had ALS. I guess he wrote about that in his biography back in 2021. I guess a two-time World Series champion, won in '79 with the Pirates, and also he won again with the A's in '89. So 10 years apart. He was part of that, Pittsburgh Pirates. He admitted that he was using cocaine at the time, and then it was. He was kind of, I think, labeled a little bit, but then he kind of reinvented himself. with the Reds. He took Barry
Hmm.
Larkin and also Eric Davis under his wing. Also, Barry Bonds also speaks highly of him, just as being the old guy in the room and on what not to do. I think that it was a different time in the late '70s, but I think he also played. You look at the team: Willie Stargell, Burt Blyleven. Goose Gossage was on the team for 1 year. So, what's your thoughts on Dave Parker? I guess he make it, uh, and the Hall of Fame ceremony is a couple weeks away, but at least he made it. Didn't make it, on the ballot. Never got that 75%, but he was going against a lot of premier players in that time. So, what's your take on the Cobra?
I was very sad to see, Dave Parker pass away. Like I said, he was known as the Cobra. A lot of good memories as a kid, and I think why it's very sad is ultimately, he's not going to obviously be present for the Hall of Fame ceremony. Obviously, that was something that he was very proud of. But I look at a guy like Dave Parker, and to me, as a kid, people like our age, he was a player that you being in this area made the All-Star game special because
Yeah,
you didn't see him like, as kids. It's not like now. We
yeah,
didn't see Dave Parker unless it was the ABC
yeah,
game of the
yeah.
week
Game of the week. Yeah,
or
yeah,
they were playing the Mets. But I mean, my first memory, if you will, like when I was really young, I used to love to see highlights of the All-Star game. Him throwing out the two runners, then as a kid, like that you had that We Are Family that took on like a national, they had like a national
yeah.
following, a
Yeah,
lot of
Chuck Tanner.
colorful
Yeah,
characters.
Chuck Tanner was the
Chuck
manager. So
Tatum was
yeah,
coming
so,
out, a lot of
so yeah,
colorful characters.
Willie Stargell was on the team.
Willie
So he like
Stargell.
it.
You had Parker on the cover of Sports Illustrated. He wore the goalie mask when he had the nose. He broke his nose. Very very good outfielder defensively. Like you said, hit a ton with the Pirates, hit a ton with the Reds. Finished his career. He won the title in Oakland. He had some time with the Brewers. A very polarizing figure. And again, I'm not going to make much of it. He was part of the Pittsburgh drug trials.
Yeah,
He was named. A lot of people were named. A lot of people weren't named. And like you said, it was just a different time. We're not making excuses here, but it was just a different time. You're talking late 70s, early 80s, and you
yeah,
know,
and
it
also
was just a different time. A lot of
he
people did get over on not being
yeah,
named.
yeah, and he had the richest contract back in '79. So I guess
Right.
when they were started, free agency. But if you look at that Pittsburgh team, they lost in the NLCS to the Reds, didn't make the playoffs, and then they were losing 3-1 to the Orioles and battled back Game 7 and won won against the Orioles back in '79. And then I don't think Pittsburgh, except for '92 when they came close against Atlanta, they haven't been that close since. So
Yeah, I mean, probably that team too. You had Dave Parker, known as the Cobra, and then you had Kent Tekulve, known as the Scarecrow. So you had
yeah,
some
yeah, yeah,
some entertaining guys. I mean, it's a shame.
yeah,
He'll
and then
definitely be missed, and he
but
represents an era that I think anybody in their late 40s to mid 50s, late 50s, was really proud of as a kid. That he was a part of.
and you look at their win total. I did some research for the show. Like 75, they're 92 and 69, 76, 92 and 70, 77, 96 and 66, 78, 88 and 73, and then they won it in '79. They were 98 and 64. So I think it definitely would have made the wild card if that was in play back in the late
Sure.
'70s.
Bad
So
timing. The big
yeah,
red machine is, bad timing there. Like you said, they now today's game they'd be in the playoffs every year.
yeah. So what else? What else you got, Jerry? You want to talk about? What about the soccer? I don't know if you get the
Red Bulls coming off this is for Pat, of course.
okay.
Red Bulls coming off a lucky 2-2 draw Saturday against Minnesota. They're sitting seventh now. They're still not healthy. They're probably going to make a move in the summer transfer window, but I'm sure they'll be in the playoffs. I think the big thing going on in the United States is the World Club Cup, getting a lot of attention, getting some very good TV coverage. It's in our area, it's all over the country. And then you had the USA with a nice win in the semifinals or the quarterfinals of the Gold Cup. I believe it was the quarterfinals. right, against Costa Rica in penalty kicks. So I'm really hoping that they could. They showed a lot of grit, a lot of character, a lot of fight, which was nice to see with some young players. A lot of the regulars aren't there, so it'd be nice to see them win the Gold Cup. And then, really the MLS, you'll probably see some moves over the summer transfer window. And then, Jimmy, before you know it, like we talked about, baby, NFL training camp coming soon.
Yeah, very soon, very soon. So, but we got a lot of sports to go on before that. So wait and see. But I mean, NFL, like I said, it's 12 months out of the year. And look at the NBA draft, like we opened up the show. I mean, it was snoozeville. It definitely was snoozeville.
Well, look at like, I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I opened up the New York Post, right? So obviously I read about the Yankees. There's some NBA stuff, Knicks and Nets. And the most exciting article that really captivated me in Sunday's Post was the story about Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
So like you said, here it is. It's June 29th, and that's what's getting me, getting the juices going. So NFL's a different animal.
And two Hoyas got drafted. Sorber got drafted, 15th pick overall. And the other kid, I think he bounced around, but he got drafted at Georgetown. So two Hoyas got drafted, and RJ Louis didn't get drafted, which I was surprised because of, coming off the season that he had. I don't know where he signed. I haven't followed it, but I don't know. I don't know what happened there, but his advisors or whatever else, but it remains to be seen. But
yeah, you got a lot of these guys. They'll get signed. They'll have an opportunity. The 20-year anniversary, which is scary. I remember like it was yesterday. 20-year anniversary of the Vegas Summer League is coming up.
Oh, wow.
So
yeah. Well, those are a fun game to watch, but who knows? A lot of those players don't end up. Well, listen, Jerry, I think that we'll close episode 57. Byron Hunt.
Now, Jimmy, the next one's going to be 58, and you know who we have to mention.
Oh, yeah. We got to get him on the show.
Pride of starter.
Yeah. Yep. So every time I post something on social media and tag him, he always retweets it. So, or retweets it, or gives us a shout out. So shout out to Carl Banks and the Giants. But as always, I'd like to thank Dave Sturcio, and also his event coming up on July 14th at the War at the Shore on a Tuesday. So he's got a lot of headlines.
15th.
On that 15th. Sorry, I keep on getting the wrong day. Sorry, Dave. July 15th. So tickets are on sale. Get follow Fight Factory or follow Dave Sturcio on social media, and you can see a lot of the wrestlers going on. But Jerry, I'll leave it with that. You could close out episode 57.
So thanks, Jim. It was another great episode. This is episode 57. We kind of got caught up, highlighted some things. We look forward to the summer, Yankees, Mets. Like we said, training camp coming soon, Giants and Jets. But hopefully by the next time we're on the air, the Knicks will have a coach. And if I'm not here, I might be on the staff. Thanks for joining us. That concludes episode 57. Tune in for episode 58 coming soon. Have a good day. Take care.
Have a good day, everyone.